Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Lou Ferrante.
So Marcos helped me find sort of like little technicalities, and we reversed that case. So now I come back to court 6.5 years later, by the way. This wasn't like 10 minutes later. I'm in jail 6.5 years by the time I reversed the case. I reversed the case. I come back to court, and I said, I'm pleading not guilty now because all my co-defendants, there was 8 of us. They're all gone. So now I'm alone. So it's hard to convict me of crimes I did with all these other people when I'm by myself over here.
And they're already convicted. They're already.
And they're all stand up, Bill. None of them are going to come in and testify against me. Every one of them stood up. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna roll the dice. Now I know that they gave one guy the witness protection program. That's how they indicted us. They did eventually put a guy into the witness protection program. He was supposedly the main snitch against us. So I says, okay, I got to face this guy. But a lot of years passed. He was really close with another one of my co-defendants, not so much me. You know, we went on a couple of scores with him. We used him once in a blue moon, but he ain't got a lot to say about me. I'm gonna take a shot. So I call for a quick jury. You know, pick a jury, 30 days or whatever it is. So in that time, the government moves to dismiss the case. And I said, whoa, wow, I got lucky. So what happened here? Well, apparently what we learned is the guy who went into the witness protection program had violated the program and was thrown out of the program, as I understood it, before we even took the pleas. So they never had a case against us. But so it was wild. But by the grace of God, this was what was meant to be, because that's how going away all those years is how I changed my life around and how I realized I'm done with this life. I'm done with crime. I'm done with all that crap. It was a snake pit. I don't trust any of the guys that were involved in that life, only very few that I could consider my real friends.
Yeah.
And I was just done with it. And I changed my life around. I taught myself how to write. I became an author. And today, as I sit here with you today, I'm a best-selling author. My books have been translated into 20 languages around the globe. And I taught myself how to write in a prison cell. So I would have never had that opportunity had I known the guy violated the program, because I would have rolled the dice and said, pick a jury then, not now. I would have had the case dismissed then. I would have never did.
Where would you be now? Where would you be now? You'd still be in the street. Something would have happened.
That, or I would have got clipped, or maybe I would have got busted for something that got me life, you know, in the end. So I wouldn't have been here talking to you. That's for sure. Yeah. My mind wouldn't have shifted.
So what caused you to write the book? Like, how did all that transpire? And
well, the new book I just wrote, which is the one I would love to talk about. It's called Borgata: Rise of Empire. The new book was written because I took a trip I get invited all over the world to speaking engagements. I used to before COVID, more so. And COVID, everybody does everything visual now, you know, like online. But for the most part, I used to just hop on a plane and go anytime they invited me somewhere. And I was in Sicily, and I met Lord George Weidenfeld, one of the biggest publishers of the 20th century. And Lord George asked me, he goes, I want to publish your next book. And I was like, whoa. You know, I came here to speak at a German media company, you know, like just speak like something related to books. They were sort of like a media company, but press, like daily press publications. You know, I'm there to speak at that, and I'm in Sicily. I'm enjoying Agrigento. It was more so like, you know, it's doubling as a sort of vacation to Sicily, which was great. And here I am offered a book deal. So the next day we had lunch overlooking the ruins of Agrigento, and Lord George said to me, I want you to write a history of the American Mafia beginning here in Sicily. And I'm like, whoa, wow. You know, it's like an offer I can't refuse. So yeah, it was wild. So he thought that what he believed was, look, given your past, you're the guy to write it, because you were in the life, you were involved in it, you were around the biggest guys. You know, I was around the Caesars. You know, I might have been a Roman gladiator in the Colosseum because I was low and I was in the trenches every day. I wasn't any big ranking guy, but I'm around the biggest guys in mobdom. You know, Vic Arena Senior was the boss of the Colombo family. John Gotti's the boss of the Gambino family. Vic Amuso, I pass his house every day. He's the boss of the Lucchese family. And Joe Messino, I pass his house every day. He's the boss of the Bonanno family. I'm around these guys every day. And Chin Gigante, to this day, I'm 35 years later, I'm best friends with Chin's daughter, Rita Gigante, one of my dearest.
Yeah, Rita. Shout out to Rita.
Rita, I love you, Rita. So yeah, I mean, I spoke to her this morning. Rita's the best, but I'm glad you did a shout out to her. So I'm in and out of Rita Gigante's house, although I didn't know the Chin. You know, I mean, Chin was in the city living with his mother, walking around in a bathrobe. But I'm still friends with Rita, and there was a big beef because when Chin found out I'm in his house in Old Tappan, Jersey, he went ballistic. He called Rita to the city. He goes, "What's a guy from the Gambinos doing in my house?" So she's like, "He's my friend. He's my dear friend." He goes, "I want him out of there."
Didn't you walk around with a robe on?
Oh, bro, I got stories for you. Bro, I got stories for you wouldn't believe. I used to drop off Rita and her mother, sometimes Rita or her mother, but usually Rita and her mother. I would stay there over the weekend at the house in Old Tappan. And then Sunday morning, I would drive them both to the bridge, to the George Washington Bridge. And then this guy, Bruce, would pick them up and bring them into the city to see Chin. So, and now I would tell my friends, at some point, I kept it from them even, that I'm staying at Chin's house in Jersey. But at some point or another, I told Pete Gotti, I go, yeah. He goes, "Where do you disappear every weekend? He thought maybe I'm taking a girl to the Poconos or something. Where you going?" Yeah. I says, "No, I'm staying by Chin's house." He goes, "Chin's house? What, are you kidding me?" So I go, "Yeah, I'm close with the daughter." So P.S., I would bring Rita and her mother Olympia to the bridge. And then I would drop them off with this guy, Bruce, on the Fort Lee side, the Jersey side of the George Washington Bridge. And then I would shoot in, back to Queens where I lived. And this old man, I only knew him as Bruce. He would get out of his car, an old jalopy. He drove an old shit box, white wall tires, hubcaps. I'm like, who the freak's got hubcaps? Who ever even heard of a hubcap? It's like an antique, a hubcap. You got to buy a hubcap on eBay, right? Yeah. So I'm like, who is this? So this old man, he would give me like a wet fish handshake. And he'd go, "How you doing, Louie?" And I'd say, "Hey, how you doing, Bruce?" And I'd pass off the ladies, Rita and her mother, to Bruce. And then I would shoot over the bridge and go home. So years later, I just thought he was some like Shimoni that Chin was sending to pick up his wife and his daughter to bring them in on Sunday for dinner with the mother at the apartment. I never knew who this guy was. I just figured like he was just a guy who runs errands for Chin. Years later, I'm in jail, and I think I was with Joe Watts, and he was reading the newspaper, and he says, "Oh, Bruce Palmieri died, the Chin's guy." I said, "Bruce Palmieri?" So whatever it was, there was a picture, and he shows me, and I go, "Son of a bitch, that's Bruce, the guy, Vito Bruce Palmieri." I knew him as Bruce. He was a captain with the Genovese crew with the West Side. Yeah. I had no idea. So I'm going to give you, that's how low key Chin's guys were. You wanted to give this guy a bowl of soup. You never knew in your wildest dreams he was a skipper. Meanwhile, this guy's a skipper. And I had no idea. So, that's like, give you an idea how low key the West Side was on the Chin. Yeah. That's like the best way. I had no idea who he was. I wouldn't have guessed he was a skipper in a million years. All the skippers I knew, you could see they were tough guys from a mile away. This guy, was a low-key guy. He's like, "Hey, don't Louie," shook my hand, gets in the car, can just see over the wheel. Can't even see over the wheel. I'm like, son of a bitch, man. So, but anyway, it gives you an idea. So getting back to the book, Lord George asked me to write the book. I'm like, you know what? I was around the biggest people, the biggest families. I was in the trenches. I know what it is to make a buck. I know what it is to go to jail. I know what it is to have a gun to your head and to have a gun to somebody else's head. The whole thing. I know it's soup to nuts, this life. A gun to your head, meaning like in a bad, tough position. Not literally speaking, but you understand. Yeah. So I said, you know what? Maybe this is for me. So I thought my other books took me a year to write. So I figured, it's going to take me like a year, maybe 2. It took me 7 years. I locked myself in a room for 7 years. And I think I wrote what is appearing to be the New York Times covered it, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, NPR News, left and right publications have all covered the book, and they're hailing it. A lot of Publishers Weekly hailed it as one of the best books written about the mob. As we sit here today, I may have written the book about Mafia history. And what I do in the book, just so you know, Bill, you're a guy who likes the real stories. So you appreciate the real stories. A lot of people who watch mob stories, they'll watch a documentary or they'll read a book. Frank Costello did this. Albert Anastasia did that. So volume 1 is history of the mob. I get up to date by volume 2 and 3. But volume 1 is the old style, Lucky Luciano days. When I read these stories, I know right away if it makes sense, it could have happened or it didn't. Yeah. Like if you hear Lucky Luciano and Frank Costello did this, that, and the other thing, if it's true or not. Or if it's bullshit. Like, for example, I read Albert Anastasia pushed around the baby stroller as he was trying to clock Thomas Dewey and see his movements. Albert Anastasia was a boss at the time. He ain't pushing around a baby stroller. He'd send some dude to go do it for him. He ain't doing that himself. So I go, come on, who made up this story? So time and again, then there were stories like where I knew people involved, like towards the end of the book, towards the end of volume 1, Borgata, Rise of Empire. I urge all your listeners and viewers to go get the book. If you love mob history, read the book. But towards the end of volume 1, I talk about Frank Costello dies. And they said somebody blew up the crypt. So they said that Frank Costello, they said Lilo Galante did it, Carmine Lilo Galante, who went on to become the boss, sort of like acting boss or pretender to the throne of the Bonanno family. He was an underboss, but he tried to take power from Rusty Rastelli. And they said that he always hated Costello, so he blew up the crypt. And I go, come on, man. This guy's a grown man. He's not a vandal. This is he's going to commit vandalism. Like he got out of jail and he's just going to go attach a little bomb to his crypt. That's something a kid would do. There's no way. So I talked around. I spoke about it with a few people I know, and I had an old timer who said, Louis, we did that. I said, what? He goes, yeah, we were looking for the gold. I go, what? What? Goes, look, he had no kids and grandkids. He was a bazillionaire. We figured he was buried at least with a gold watch, a gold chain, gold pinky ring, and gold went from like $20 an ounce to $200 an ounce. And he goes, so we figured he's, go get the gold. And I go, you got to be kidding me. So, notwithstanding that my friend just admitted to being a grave robber, but whatever the case is, he goes, we were looking for the gold. So in the end, I said, let me see if I could verify this. So I went and I looked. When Costello died, gold was like $24 an ounce. When the crypt was blown up, it went to like $190 an ounce. So there's your proof.
Was there any gold? Did they get any gold?
I didn't get into it. I don't, there's questions I don't ask, right? So it's like, I couldn't believe he was giving me what he gave me, which was a gem. But I didn't say, did you pull the ring off his skeletal finger? I didn't get that deep. But whatever the case is, I also found an article that said the body was tampered with. Nobody ever talked about that. So it made sense. What my friend told me was legit. But whatever the case is, that's one myth I was able to debunk. But there's throughout the whole book, I talk about Bugsy Siegel when he was clipped in Vegas. I break down why he was killed. There's a lot of stories that are out there. It's bullshit that he was robbing with Virginia Hill. They got mad at him. That was the propaganda the mob put out. A lot of times the mob puts out its own propaganda to hide the real reason why they're doing something. They're not going to tell you why they're making a move. If we killed Bill Staxx for his money, we're not going to tell you we killed Bill Staxx for his money. Like a guy like Sammy.
You're going to say Staxx was stealing and we had to kill him because he was trying to steal from us.
Exactly. We found out that Staxx was robbing this and Staxx was robbing that. And they'll throw in, maybe you dated a woman after she lost her husband. They'll say, well, Staxx started dating her before the husband was dead, so you're not allowed to do that. And meanwhile, you'll be like, no, I never touched her. I never even talked to her before the husband was dead. Well, we just, we shifted a few months back and we say Staxx was seen with her at, at Spumoni Gardens before the husband was clipped, before the husband died. So now we think Staxx was fooling around with the wife.
Yeah.
All these stories are usually made up to cover what the real reason was, which was we wanted Staxx's money. So the mob puts out its own propaganda. So time and again, when I would spot the mob propaganda, I would break it down for the reader. And I've had a phenomenal response. People have emailed me and saying, I just knew something was wrong with this. And until you broke it down for me, I never knew exactly what it was. Thank you. So I'm getting a lot of that. I'm getting a lot of, I'm debunking myths throughout the whole.
So you break down the myth, right, on what happened, and then you explain what you think happened, or do you do the research to find out what really happened?
Both. Exactly. Great question, Bill. I do exactly both. So usually I'll do as much research as I can to see where the story might have came from and figure out the origin, if it was false, where it might have came from. So if I could tell you the origin, maybe you'll know, then we could figure out that it's not true. The next thing I do is try to figure out what really happened. And then I break down into the best of my knowledge and the best of my research and the best opinion with my own insights and experience. This is what probably happened. And if you're reading the book and you're learning, as you go, as I'm going through the stories, my goal is to I don't have to make you I don't have to get your mind into the mobology. You're in it already. You understand it. But the average casual reader who picks up the book, I want them to understand it too. you know, somebody who reads other things too, but just picks up a mob book once in a blue moon. They don't understand the stories. They don't know. They don't have sort of that bell that goes off like you would have or I would have when we hear something that's not true. We know this life, so the bell goes off. You're involved with it every day. I was involved with it every day. They don't. Your average reader goes to Barnes and Noble, picks up the book. Maybe he's a bus driver. Maybe he reads 2 mob books a year. So I'm trying to get him to think like a mobster too. So by the time he puts down the trilogy, he's going to go, wow, I'll spot something in a minute now if it's not true. Yeah. Or I'll see a documentary. Last night I got off my last bus route and I'm watching a documentary before I fell asleep on History Channel. Bang. I read the book. Lou taught me how to think and I spotted that shit right away.